It was written with intense pleasure in the language. I think that's what did it.
You won the Booker.
Yes.
It can change your career.
It can and does change your career. I mean, I know another writer who won it who says she feels she's going along the streets with a placard held up in front of her saying Booker Prize winner. It changes it in all sorts of subtle ways. Chinese universities, for instance, some of them study English literature by studying the list of Booker winners. I would not myself construct a course on modern English literature out of the Booker winners, but places do. On the whole, it's been very beneficial to me. I mean, it helped financially enormously.
In the pattern you'd established, the book which should have appeared in around 1990 would have been the third in the quartet. It was a quite different, unrelated novel, Possession, which, as it turned out, it changed your writing life quite significantly. But what led you to interrupt the sequence?
One has to tell the truth, as my father always said. I had, between the planning of the novels and the writing of them, experienced an accident in the death of my son. I experienced it so violently that I found it almost impossible to bring myself to write the accident which I had planned. The splinter of ice was not big enough, and I felt very superstitious and frightened. And I was very worried by having thought in this abstract way about accident when I then had gone through it. And then I thought I'd do something else. And then I had this idea for possession, which came from the word possession. And I thought to myself, if you don't write that now, it'll get old and tired by the time you get round to it, after the end of the quartet. And so I thought, I'll write that now and go right away from the whole of anything to do with my life. And I did it for pure literary pleasure. And I never thought it would be a bestseller, let alone mean so much to people in countries all over the world. People sort of appear from Korea and the Philippines and say, this is my favourite book. It's a book about academics in a library. It's very weird, but it was written with intense pleasure in the language. I think that's what did it. The London Library was Roland's favourite place. It was shabby but civilised, alive with history, but inhabited also by living poets and thinkers who could be found squatting on the slotted metal floors of the stacks or arguing pleasantly at the turning of the stair. Here Carlyle had come, here George Eliot had progressed through the bookshelves. Roland saw her black silk skirts, her velvet trains, sweeping compressed between the fathers of the church, and heard her firm foot ring on metal among the German poets. Here Randolph Henry Ashe had come, cramming his elastic mind and memory with unconsidered trifles from history and topography, from the felicitous alphabetical conjunctions of science and miscellaneous, dancing, deaf and dumb, death, dentistry, devil and demonology, distribution, dogs, domestic servants, dreams.
I mentioned Anthony Burgess. I wondered about this because Earthly Powers, which was his big bestseller, which was Booker Prize shortlisted, he didn't win it, but he was quite open that he said he was walking through an airport once and he thought, I want to have the kind of book that is going to be sold in airports, that he was going out for a bigger readership, but there was no element of calculation for you.
On the contrary, I thought this is a stupid thing to do, and indeed the publishers really didn't like it. Neither the English publishers nor any American. It was turned down by 14 American publishers before it found a publisher, and she said that she was going to use her red pencil very heavily and take out all the Victorian bits because they were destroying a fine modern intrigue, she said. And I said, I can't face this, let's just forget it. And then it won the Irish Times Prize, and then it won the Booker, and then the Americans agreed to publish it without cutting anything out. And then it sort of snowballed. But I had no idea. I mean, it isn't the sort of book you would expect to sell continuously in airports, is it? It's an academic romance written by an intellectual with a passion for poetry.